Hello everyone, welcome. We're here to talk about Envirotech's marine course. Envirotech wrote the very first marine qualification for vet in the entire world. It is a marine habitat conservation and restoration course. With us here today, we have Shelly, the CEO of Envirotech and the founder. Welcome, Shelly. We also have Professor Nadav Shashar, who is one of our key consultants. I'd like to ask them to briefly introduce to you who they are. Shelly?
Thank you, Paula, and thank you everyone for joining Envirotech Indigenous Marine Conservation Leadership. My name is Shelly Bengiat. I am Australian-Israeli, currently based in Israel, and really very grateful to have you all here.
Hello, my name is Nadav Shashar. I'm a professor of marine biology over at Gurion University in Israel, in Eilat, at the very northern tip of the Red Sea. My research works on restoration of marine habitats, mainly coral reefs, but not only, and also about the rehabilitation and how to integrate and have people working in it in different places of the world. Thank you all.
Thanks, Nadav. I know from working at Envirotech how amazing this course is and how much it has excited so many people. What I'd like you to share with everyone today is what made you write this course? I mean, no one has ever written a vet certificate course for marine restoration and conservation.
I'll go for that. For me, it all started in a case where I was hired by a company to go and do a project. And the project was very simple monitoring, just saying in some habitat how much seagrass was and what fishes were. So we went out. The boat operator had a PhD. The assistant boat operator had a master's. The cameraman had a PhD, and the guy who was diving with him also had a PhD. The supervisor was myself. I'm a full professor. Now, the whole damn thing, sorry for the wording, is simply photographing long transects, putting a line and taking it and seeing what's in it. We just photograph it. And it turned out that, well, we academic kind of haven't a hold on it. Now, it was nice because the company paid a lot of money for this thing. They paid through the nose because everybody had a PhD. But there is no need for that.
It's like a joke, isn't it?
It was ridiculous.
How many PhD people do you need to put a line in the water?
Exactly. So you need 3 at least and 2 on the boat. Now, there is no reason for that. There are boatmen which are much better than us. We don't learn how to run a boat in the university. There is no course about that. Mm-hmm. Now, there are people that are very good and working with boats. There are people that know the habitat much better than we do. There are people that know how to see things which we don't even see. And they do it much better than us, but they still are blocked. They can't do these things. So the idea for me was to train people which don't go all the way to having a PhD or even a master's or a bachelor's, and just get them to do the work much better and most likely much cheaper for the companies.
Okay, so if I can interrupt you for a moment, Shelly, what are your thoughts on why you were inspired to write this course?
Envirotech have been leading in the area of environmental management and sustainability in the vocational education sector. When we say vet, sometimes it is confused to be something of looking after animals, but the vocational education sector is about training in a very practical way. It is easy to understand when we think about carpenters. They do not go to university. It is even easy to understand when we speak about conservation land management. So you would imagine a reforestation project. Of course, it is very important to have the scientists to design, develop, choose species. But at the end of the day, some people need to dig holes in the ground, put the plants, and pressurize the irrigation systems. And those are the exact type of tasks that are predominantly relevant to the vocational education sector. And when we started to look at the severe effects of climate change and what is happening at the marine environment, we could identify that there is a workforce that is just missing for the marine. It exists in conservation land management, in forestry. However, the marine was not given that opportunity for the vocational education for those exact tasks that Professor Nadav has mentioned. And it became a life mission and a vision to actually observe what are the missing components of the vocational education sector, and to start embedding much more of the marine and more sustainability and capacity building units of components that can empower communities to take action.
Shelly, just in the what we've been discussing when we've been developing this course and implementing it, I know that we're not saying at Envirotech that university degrees are not important.
Of course, the university degrees are very important, and the level of specialities. What we are actually coming to feel is a gap that is a bridge between entry-level tasks that can be starting to even be taught at the school and with fishermen communities, and to build those bridges that are STEM studies, however, at the very practical, hands-on, like a builder underwater that does understand the biology, but to a certain extent, and focusing on our backyards, where scientists continue to develop their capacity and their understanding to a much more complex level.
Yes, university levels degrees are very important. But let's say about when you want to go into the university. And I tell you for myself, I prefer to have a student that actually knows what he's talking about and why is he going there. I usually have lots of students, like 150 students, 175 students per year. Well, some of them want to go to med, pre-med, and so on. So they know what they want. Most of them have wide eyes, and the first semester they want to do all marine biologists. The second semester they want to do horses, because our vertebrate teacher is very good and he does horses. Then they want to do plants and keep on going. So students that actually come with knowledge and focus, and they actually have some experience, are much better students. They are much more focused, and also they easily apply their studies into the real world. They actually know when we teach them biochemistry, well, okay, that relates to this and this, and so on. And photosynthesis, well, corals, yes, there are zooxanthellae, there are algae in there, and that's why we need photosynthesis, why it's important. And it keeps on going this way. So they become much better students. And it's much easier for them to apply and to actually get into the university afterwards when they come with some experience in the field.
That's so true. You know, as a teacher myself, I know that to get people to do and then to learn, or vice versa, is the most amazing way for people to actually understand. I'd just like to bring us back to that whole concept that, you know, this is about marine and indigenous. And I know one of your key phrases, Shelly, is about bringing the fishermen to the sea. Would you like to expand on that?
Yes, thank you so much. As we wrote the courses, one of the key statements at the very beginning of the course is that because marine biology is predominantly set only in university degrees, then there are entire populations that are being, that don't have access to the marine conservation restoration employment because they do not have the degrees. And this is in Australia, the indigenous islanders that are living in communities which are remote, they do not have access to university degrees, and as well the method of studying that we mentioned is very theoretical and less hands-on, is culturally not suiting the learning style. So the moment that the degree entrance is the only way to enter the marine industry, then indigenous people that live on the Great Barrier Reef or in other marine environments, they have by their heritage a deep connection to the sea. They know from their ancient culture a lot of Dreamtime stories on what happened to the natural environment in cycles and so on. And all this knowledge, ancient knowledge, cannot actually lead them to enter the education sector, because before these courses there was no vocational education. So many of them do study conservation land management, but marine biology for fishermen was a concept that was enabling people to actually connect their passion, their heritage, to their vocational outcomes and hopefully jobs.
Yeah, and I know that our key audience today are the Indigenous, and we welcome you, and we're so grateful that you've joined us today. Or actually, I should say, excuse me, Indigenous and Islanders. It's lovely to have you here. Why, Shelly? Why are we doing this? Why are we having this webinar? Why are we talking about bringing it to the sea? How are we going to do that?
Can I jump
in? Go, Nadav, sorry.
I would like to jump in. In a way, for me as a researcher, having someone who knows the sea and knows the land is much better, because the results that are going to be obtained would be much better. I won't just go over I don't have to teach them how to identify fish. They actually know what fishing is about. So when we want to do accounting and an assessment or the stock assessment, well, it's easy. They know how to do it. How to grow mangroves? Well, if you live around mangroves, then you know where they grow, what they need, and things like that. And if you want to do a beach restoration, it would be a good idea if you actually know what the beach looked like some time ago. Otherwise, what will you restore to? And usually it's for photographs. That's what we usually do. So having people that actually have a connection to the area will give much better outcomes. And that's from my point of view. Now, from their point of view, it's their point of view, and I won't go into that because I don't know it. But as somebody who wants to have the work done, I much prefer to have people that actually have access and have knowledge of the habitat.
And have seen what was and what is now. And I want to take the opportunity to share our concerns to what has been happening in North Queensland as we're seeing bleaching. And we know that there is a whole community of Indigenous people that have been watching these year after year, deterioration of marine environments, which are life support system, and that are producing not only food, but as Professor Nadav mentioned, oxygen and a lot of other essential services for humanity. And as we have been watching and observing these phenomena accelerating, it is very important that the people that actually live the closest to the reef will be able to be part of not only monitoring and not only conservation, but the next line that we have to take is restoration. And this is really interesting because in Australia, similarly to other countries, conservation is something that is applied. However, restoration is a very complex activity that is at the heart of what has to really happen yet.
Well, I'm conscious of time. I obviously, from my perspective, would love to say, you know, people watching and people not watching, if you can spread the message to them. We want you to come on board. We want to work with you. We're so excited about what this has to offer. And I'll just ask Nadav and then Shelly to sum up with their final thoughts.
I see these courses as a way of breaking this glass ceiling that we see all the time, that actually prevent people that are connected to the sea to be engaged in preserving their own habitat or the places where they actually live, on one hand. And on the other hand, as a way of getting the work better, faster, and more efficiently. Because you can have a much larger workforce, you can have people that are ready to go wherever you want them to. You don't have to wait for somebody from the university like me to come up and do an assessment and so on. Well, there are people that actually know what to do on the spot, which is an improvement. So from that point of view, I see that these courses actually not only provide some benefit, but they also are benefit to people who take them, or significant benefit to people who take them, but also they are very useful for the environment itself and will allow us to better stewardship of the marine environment.
Thank you, Nadav. I would like to finish with a little bit of a different philosophical approach, talking about love, talking about our love to the natural environment, and actually connecting as well to tomorrow's event. So tomorrow we have another webinar, and the webinar tomorrow is about environmental management from a philosophical, spiritual point of view, and our commitment on a spiritual level. Tomorrow we are going to even consider whether the environmental problem is a spiritual problem, and if so, whether we need some spiritual tools to assist looking after the natural environment. So I would like to say that these courses allow us to understand better and appreciate as well the natural environment, the amount of years it takes to actually evolve the services that we are depending on. So it's not only the trees produce oxygen, the marine environment produces oxygen. And so the love that we have, not only for us humans, but to the creatures that are part of the sea and the marine environment that support us, and understanding their values and how to support them and making it passion, occupations. And I think that the greatest thing of these courses is that they have been really provoking people to be passionate. I like to call environmental heroes, and connecting to the sea on a multidimensional level, which is of course the science, and our gratitude for the indigenous people and for tomorrow's event, as we acknowledge and understand the value that indigenous people bring in their spiritual approach to the natural environment and the sea, is something that science has been in many areas lacking to present. So thank you so much for your participation and for taking part in the webinar.